What's going on, everybody? Taylor from FullTilt Reptiles, and today we're going to show you guys how to set up a Crested Gecko tank for beginners. So Crested geckos are one of the easiest geckos to set up. Their tank is a very simple tank, and it's kind of something that I recommend for everyone to start with because they're so simple to set up. So the first thing that you're going to need when setting up a Crested Gecko tank is your substrate. I love using coconut fiber. It's very simple to use. You can use it in a lot of different applications. All you have to do is it comes usually in you can get it ground up, but it comes in a compressed block, and you just add water to it and it kind of comes apart. And depending on how much water you add to it, depending on how much humidity you want into it, the next thing you're going to need is some type of food holder. So it comes with little cups that you can put in here, and these are the ones that I like to use because you can stick them to the side of the tank and they can easily access them. They like to climb on things. So we like to use the Gecko cup holders. The next thing you want is a couple branches. So I like to have just some branches that they can climb on inside the tank. We'll set up one with this. And then something I think is really necessary for Crested geckos is a piece of cork bark. Cork bark is awesome. They can get into it, they can hide behind it, they can kind of use it, they can climb on it, they can get really good grip on this. So cork bark is amazing for lots of different animals, but especially for Crested geckos. You want to make sure that everything you're getting is pressure treated or heat treated. You want to make sure that there's no bacteria or bugs coming in from outside. So don't just go and pick up something in the woods and put it in your tank, because then you can run into getting different type of issues by bringing stuff in that might harm your geckos. So the next step is going to be your tank. So I love using Zoom Ed tanks. Zoom Ed is my favorite brand to use when I'm using tanks, lights, fixtures, all that kind of stuff. So we have a Zoom Ed a dual fixture, so you can add your heat and your UVB onto here. I go with a 50-watt bulb because I'm in a room that's a little bit cooler, so the 50-watt bulb sets the perfect temperature. For Crested geckos, I like to have my ambient temperature around 75, and I like to have the hot spot up around 81. Now, because the tanks are so tall, they can go from top to bottom and they can get away from the heat or get closer to the heat. But the average temperature in the middle of the tank is sitting about 75, maybe down to 72 at the bottom and around 81 at the top hot spot where they can bask. I love the glass tanks because you can see inside of them. These are great for breeding, but they're also great for just having on display if you want to have a couple pets and you want to just enjoy watching them every day. As long as there's not too much traffic, and with any reptile you don't want a lot of traffic going by the tank because it can stress them out a little bit. So I have them in a room that we don't have kids and dogs going on every single day, so they get a little bit of peace and quiet. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and add our substrate to the bottom. Like I said, we're using coconut fiber, so it's ground up coconut. And I've already added my water to it, and I've got it to the moisture level that I like. Crested geckos, they thrive really well at the 50 to 75% humidity inside the tank. So it gives them enough humidity that they can shed properly, they can get their moisture from drinking because they'll drink any kind of droplets of water that you have in the tank. So we'll go in, I like to add about 1.5 inches of substrate on the bottom. Now there's lots of different types of substrate you can use. This is just what we use here. But your local pet stores or reptile expos, you'll be able to find lots of different substrates that work great for Crested geckos. This is just what I've found works for us the best. So the next step, and like I said, this is a very simple setup. This is just for your beginner Crested geckos. So I'll just add my cork bark in there. And you want to make sure it's sturdy. You don't want to make sure it's going to fall over. And then simply just add a nice branch in there. And again, you want to make sure that nothing's going to fall. You want to make sure everything's sturdy in there. They don't weigh very much, but you still want to make sure that there's not a chance of it falling on top of them. And then the last step is just going to be adding your food holder in. And like I said, I like using the suction cup ones. Then they can kind of climb up. It's a little bit more natural for them. And there you have it. That's your Crested Gecko setup, and I'll show you guys how we feed them. So the last step is going to be feeding your Crested Geckos. So what I like to use is the brand Repashy. So this is just their regular Crested Gecko original diet. You can get a variance of different flavors for them. It's good to switch up the flavor. You don't want them just having the same thing all the time. It kind of keeps their appetite a little bit better, I find. But as of right now, we're just using the original diet. And then the next time I pick it up, I'll get something like the mango flavor, or there's lots of different flavors you can add. And then what I like to do is I add some type of bug in there. I prefer to go with crickets. And I'll do that about once or twice a week. They don't need it, but it's good to have that kind of predator instinct to them where they can hunt and find something. So when you're making Repashy or any type of Crested Gecko blend diet, all you have to do is add a little bit of water, and you get a feel for it after a while of how much water to add to how much powder you add. So I like it to have the consistency of a ketchup. So you add your water, and then you add your powder in. And I just take a little spoon and you mix it in. I feed our Crested Geckos pretty much every day, but you can get away with doing it every other day. I just like having a little bit in there in case they're hungry certain days and certain days they're not. So I just put some in every single day. And like I said, you just want the consistency of ketchup. You want it not super runny, but not super thick. Kind of just a good kind of pasty. So just mix it up until all the clumps are out. You don't want to make sure there's no clumps in there, because if there's too many clumps, you can risk them getting impacted in their mouth. Not necessarily it's going to hurt them, but it's a lot easier for them to eat when it's all mixed up properly. And then simply all you have to do, and this is why I love the cup holders, is all you do is drop it in there. You can add 2 in there, you can add worms into another cup, or you can add some water. But like I said, it's good to spray them down. I'll spray our geckos about twice a day, just because I'm in the room a lot. So I can spray them in the morning and I can spray them at night, and it keeps that humidity up around 70-72%. They're very simple geckos to have. I really recommend them as a starter gecko, or even just adding them to your reptile collection, just because you like something that you can hold, something that you can interact with. I think they're awesome geckos. So your last step is just adding your animals to your tank. And we have your Crested Gecko setup. So there you have it. There's your Crested Gecko setup for beginners. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, tell us what you guys would do different, what you guys liked about our setup, and I'll see you guys in the next video.